Okay, so we're recording. Thanks so much for dialing in this morning. I hope that everyone's doing okay with the, I know Ash, it might not be affecting you, but in Europe we're having quite a heat wave at the moment. So I hope everyone's doing okay today. And Valeri's got an awesome opening question for today. That's a really nice one. How about Fabian? We'll pick you to start.
What am I passionate about? Also that work. Well, I'd say a couple of things. I think the most obvious is probably I'm quite passionate about cycling. I spoke with Rachel yesterday, and so I went cycling on Sunday and on Monday evening, and with a group here in Münster. And I don't know, it's like my heart opens. Right? It's like the landscape is beautiful. It's such an amazing sport, and I didn't really get into it until I was in my sort of early mid-20s, and I was not very sporty. And because I got injured, a friend of mine sort of suggested, hey, I have a second bike. Don't you just want to come for a ride because it's good for your knees? And that was really one of those things where I can truly say before and after are different, right? Because I went on a bike and was just like, this is amazing. This is so much fun. And so that's really been something that has allowed me to do many great things. I met lots of cool people. Many of my friends now cycle. So that's definitely a big passion of mine. That I also hope will stay with me essentially for the rest of my life. I cycled with someone on Sunday who is 83, right? And I thought that was quite impressive. Obviously, very slow, but the person was essentially, look, you can do this essentially until you fall off your bike, and all these young people have no excuses. If I can get up and go cycling, then they can too. And so that's me.
Well, that's certainly motivation to keep you on your bike. Every time you feel like you don't really want to go out, just think, well, I'm not 83, I can get on my bike.
Yeah. No, it's very true.
Oh, well, my passion is quite similar, but I enjoy running. And I used to run, it was also one of those things before and after was quite different. And absolutely, I used to really struggle with running, but it was mostly just because I was unfit and slightly lazy about exercise. And then started regularly putting on my shoes and going out for a run, and really enjoyed it. After being pregnant with my daughter, I had to stop running for a while because that gets a bit challenging on the knees and the hips. But since I've started running again afterwards, we also got the dog. So I take Swift running a lot, and I'm trying to get back into doing that more and more because I find it a great great mental space that you get into, and it's nice when you finally crawl into bed at night and you think, oh my, you just feel well exercised, and it's a great sort of a great thing to do with the dog as well. So it's loads of fun. What about you, Valeri?
Yeah, that's actually my problem, because I love too much things in this life. I love reading books. I love cycling. I love electronics, chemistry, sorry, and yeah, and of course programming. So, so too much things. Yeah, that's pretty much it about me. Yeah, I also when I was young, I did boxing a lot, and now I think I'm not going to do that again. But yeah.
Yeah, fun fact, my dad is a pretty good boxer, and when I was young, he also boxed a little bit, and my dad accidentally almost knocked me out, and my mom was very upset, and my dad was just like, so that's my childhood memory of boxing.
So Ash, what about you?
Everyone, hopefully you can hear me okay.
You're a bit muffled.
Let's try. Sorry, I'm using a different headset because I need to keep my ear out for that now. Does that work a bit better?
and just increase the loudness.
Yeah, I'm also just making you louder, and then I'm fine.
Yeah.
Sorry, everyone. Passionate about. I used to be really passionate about playing tennis and surfing, but I don't get to do either of those things these days. So probably electronics and home automation, trying to be as lazy as possible and let computers and sensors and things do all the work. Yeah, I would like to. I'm in the process of booking myself to have surgery on my shoulder so I can play tennis again. So that would be amazing, but it will take a while. So yeah, one day.
What about Aussie rules football?
That is a young person's game. I used to play that when I think I stopped when I was 18 or 19 because you either need to commit fully to becoming quite strong physically, otherwise you just get squashed. So yeah, I think we had this conversation at the end, but yeah, it's a definitely a young person's game.
Yeah.
Okay.
I very much like that description. You have to commit to being strong, or you're going to get squashed.
They're huge, and yeah, the local. I mean, like any sort of amateur sport, they play to win at whatever cost. I mean, professional sport, they tend to sometimes be a little more careful with their body and things like that. But amateur league of anything, I think they go all in. So it's a bit terrifying, actually. I do like watching football, though.
Cool. Well, thank you for that. That was actually a really awesome question. Thank you, Valerie. That was great. So I thought this morning I'd like to start, the first thing I put on the agenda is just doing a quick run through of the boards on the new process. We've been doing this a couple of times and we do have a few recordings up already, but I just wanted, this is just part of making sure that everyone's on the same page with how the new process works and opening up for any questions that might be on anyone's minds. So Fabian, would you be willing to start off with the plan board and then I'll switch over and take from the schedule board?
I can do that. Okay. Can you see my screen? Cool. Okay, so if we step back a tiny bit, essentially, so in the product group, there's always a lot of change, and we have a new VP, Scott Williams, right? And one of the things that he is also keen on is to ensure that we do a little bit more work defining what we want to do, right, ahead of actually doing it, right? And so, in essence, what this means is that some of these terms here may make it into sort of a wider product framework, but I think what we did in Geo is essentially create a sort of dual track system where what you see here is the plan board, which essentially contains issues that I have to sort of progress from left to right. The idea is that when we start working on epics and we define larger efforts that we actually want to undertake, let's say verifying all data, that issues will belong to those epics. And before you as in Valerie and Ash actually start implementation work, we take them through this plan board in order to ensure that the quality of the issues that we actually write is to such a standard that it is really well understood what the problem is, what the proposed solution is for actually solving this problem, that the issues are scoped to such a level that we actually understand why they are as big as they are, or if they could be broken down a little bit more, that they have a correct weight applied. And only when all of those things are actually done, we move them forward. And that, the hope that we have is that, for example, let's say if we have something here, something open, handling, accepting terms for Geo. So this is apparently still not working. So, you can't actually go to a secondary and like use it if you haven't accepted the terms and conditions of GitLab. That's the problem. So I can move this forward. In the problem validation like step, I actually like do a little bit of work trying to understand, is this a customer relevant problem? You know, do we really understand what this problem is? Depending on the size of the issue, it may actually mean I reach out to some customers and talk to them and say like, hey, you know, like, is this something that's relevant? Like we try to do a little bit of sort of groundwork to understand, you know, like what is the problem that we're trying to solve here? And then the next stage here, solution validation, this would be often a discussion with an engineer who is either responsible for this epic or somebody who's interested in it, to understand, it's like, okay, do we actually have a good understanding what we can do in order to solve this problem? Because sometimes I think this is quite difficult, right? And so it may also be a discussion. It's like, well, if we don't really have a good technical solution or it's a lot of work, do we still want to do it? So it ensures that a little bit of discussion is happening. And then here in the planning breakdown, the idea is that actually, for example, these items here are, I'll move this back, they're really good examples, I'd say. So the automatic verification of job artifacts or custom hooks, they're relatively big. So they have like weight of 10 or 11. And I think in the past, one thing that I've observed is that when items are this big, they are often a little bit amorphous, right? They are big because it's not 100% clear what needs to happen, but sometimes maybe that's also okay. But at least we can make an effort here and say like, well, what are the individual steps that we really need to like do? Can we break this down into smaller pieces that we can maybe parallelize? Then, you know, we move it to the like needs weight if it doesn't have a weight, just to ensure that it is weighted. So these are all the messages that I wrote to you in the last like days and asking people to put weights on things. And only then we actually move it forward to scheduling. And in an ideal world, you know, this whole like planning process would be like, let's say, 1 to 2 months ahead of the building, right? So we are planning and preparing all of those issues ahead of time, you know, so that when it comes to building, you know, like they're really well understood and they're a little bit decoupled from each other. That's the gist.
Cool. Thank you for taking the plan board. I'll start sharing my screen so we can talk about the scheduling board. There, can you see my screen? Okay. So then this is the scheduling board. So everything that we decide, well, everything that Fabian decides is got enough information that we could actually work on it. I say Fabian decides, I think it's Fabian decides if there's enough information to put this forward to be worked on, and then he and I have a discussion to check that there's nothing missing, that there's nothing, hopefully that there's no oversights, that we've lined up the right help from different types of people, so maybe people outside of the team, and things will then land up in the scheduling board, where we will have the discussion every Friday that's open for everyone to join, where we talk about what we're actually going to try and move into getting done or getting developed. And we simply drag things from one column to the other after having a discussion. We'll add any notes that come out of the discussion. And this board is a very simple way of just guiding that conversation. That will happen every Friday. And as soon as things have been dragged into active, they show up then on the build board. And the build board is something that is not that much different from the boards that we had in the past. It still has in development, in review. There's a new column about verification that we've talked about in the handbook change. And the idea would be that anything that's been dragged into active will show up in ready for development, waiting for someone to then pick that up and get on with the work there. That pretty much is the new process in a nutshell. So I'm not sure if there are any questions that people have or any clarification that they need. But now's the time to ask any questions.
No questions from me.
Cool.
Cool. Just one remark. So what we are trying to do is also align our process a little bit more to the continuous delivery aspects of GitLab.com, because the build board is essentially like, it's never going to change, right? It's always going to be the same board. And it means that rather than tying it to a specific milestone, at the 12.1 board or 12.2 board, we will assign milestones, ideally, to the issues on those boards, but the build board will just continuously like run. So for us, it should mean that at any given point in time, what is on the build board is the most important thing to actually like build right now. And we make a prediction on, like, will this actually make it into the standalone release of GitLab for this month? I need to do this in some cases, but it shouldn't be so, like, here is the plan for the next month, and then here is the plan for the month after that. It should be more continuous in nature. And I think that should allow us also to react a little bit more swiftly to like issues that come up and adjust those more rapidly, because we're going to meet every week and discuss this. So I think that should make it a little bit more transparent, and hopefully, let's say if something gets implemented that actually gets picked up on GitLab.com, that becomes available pretty much like immediately after it was finished on the build board.
And then the nice thing about tying this into epics is that, running Kanban can be difficult sometimes because it feels like there's never an end. It feels like there's always work to do, and there's always so much of the work. But I'm hoping that tying it back to epics means that when the epics are finished, that's sort of a time for celebration, because we've been able to ship this large piece of work through working together to get it done. And the way that we're moving towards using epics at the moment, I think just supports this whole new process very nicely. So Fabian, I see that you have the next item on the agenda.
The next 3 items. So, okay, I was just interested. So we are moving a little bit more towards an epics-based workflow, where I have spent quite a bit of time sort of defining some larger epics, but it's obviously not done yet, and there's a lot of like work to do. I've worked already with a couple of engineering owners on those epics. So I don't think Valeria and Ash, we've done this yet, but I was just curious on just hearing, we've been doing it now for a little while. I've invested a little bit of effort on those epic descriptions. Is there something that you support? Any feedback on it at this moment? Is it too early to tell? Because, it's important to me to hear your opinion on it, because ultimately it should make our lives better as well, as much as it does our customers, ideally.
I personally haven't been unfortunately looking very much at the geo work at this stage, but so I can't comment. Everything that you've done thus far seems really sensible and logical, which I think is a good start.
Cool.
And we're very much looking forward to having you back. For those who don't know, Ash is joining us back on the 8th of August, and yeah, looking forward to it.
Me too. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't have any feedback too, because I'm working on Docker registry for a long time, so I can't say nothing yet. But it sounds pretty reasonable to me. So.
Okay, I think some other people in the second call may have some more direct feedback, but that's already helpful, because I think that means we can just continue. And I think both you, Ash, when you're back, and Valeria, when you're done with the Docker bits, are probably going to work a little bit more closely with me on some items, and then it may be easier to actually evaluate. I think what I always ask is, if it doesn't work, or like we need to improve something, it's better to tell me or essentially anyone early, because then we can change something. It becomes harder, when I don't know.
And I mean, nothing is permanent ever, so it's always an opportunity to learn and improve as we go along. But right now, it just seems like Rachel, what you were saying, it seems to be a good sort of marriage between where we're looking to go as far as deploying more frequently. So it seems really good.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. I think the next bit is on a customer update. So we had a customer struggling a little bit with upgrading their GitLab installation and their GitLab install. And I think the last that I've heard as of this morning, it appears that they were actually like able to upgrade, and I think that is resolved as far as I can tell right now. So that's really good. I just wanted to take that opportunity to highlight again that I think like Rachel has done an excellent job at like pushing the support crew a little bit more to consider how we can help them best. But also in the last month or so, we had quite a few support items that came up. And I think that was sometimes a little bit challenging just because of the time zone and you know, making that possible. But I think actually, you know, you've done a tremendous job. I know Valeri had to get up early at some point to actually support a call at a strange time, and I think that's really appreciated. So this is not something that I think is forgotten, and I think our customers maybe, you know, like sometimes struggling with upgrades, but I know that everybody at the team is doing their absolute best to help them out, and I think that's super awesome. I just wanted to say that.
No, thank you for that feedback. It's also good to know what's happening with the customers. So I very much appreciate the conversations that you're having with them and feeding that back into the team. Cool. Ash, you have the next item.
Cool. So just before I jump on that, just going back to the customer side of things, is it worth us trying to be, maybe not us being geo-team, but GitLab trying to be more, or at least trying to get a better sense of what our customers might be looking to do in the future as far as upgrades, you know, ahead of time, you know, as much as possible, kind of try and get ahead of when they're planning to do things. I mean, if they decided to do an upgrade, you know, really quickly or an ad hoc, that, you know, we can't do much about that. But if we know that, you know, a big customer is likely to perform an upgrade in 3 weeks, then, you know, the more time we have to prepare, to plan and sort of be available, I think the better. So I don't know how much we're doing of that already, because if we could do, you know, if we're not, we probably should be, but I don't know if we're not. So,
well, I think there is, I think I definitely agree with you. Like, being in that position would be absolutely ideal, where we know that things are going to happen. I think at the moment what happens when customers are going to do an upgrade, they sometimes let us know that they will be doing the upgrade just in case they land up raising emergency support tickets. But I think that part of the conversations that I'm having with the TAMs and support at the moment are to try and move that awareness as early as possible, but also into issues so that they can communicate with us better. I noticed even yesterday that some support people didn't know that the upgrade was happening. So there seems to be something about the communication that can improve. I think we just need to figure out what it is and figure out how they can best let us know that that's happening. Because there were mentions of certain things in the support self-managed channel, but not all of us sit there. And it's certainly not a channel that I have been watching very closely. And we need to figure out how to get what they know into our team so that we can be ready to help.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think, like, similar to what you said, like, I personally feel if we have, let's say, customers that, you know, essentially, you know, have agreements with us to support them in some form or another on, let's say, operations that may require or that are a little bit more involved, like upgrading high availability configurations, or whatever they may be, right? I think this is also a determination that we need to make internally. But if there are things where, like, GitLab feels in order to ensure that customers have the best possible experience, we need to be with them, you know, that needs to be clear. Then my expectation is, to a certain extent, that if we know ahead of time something is happening, right, then we should do our best to communicate that to the people that will actually need to be available. Because I think what I've witnessed a couple of times is, for one reason or another, some people knew that something is going to happen, but it didn't really percolate through the system. And then on Friday afternoon, it sort of drops on, for example, the geo team that something is happening on Monday morning, and then it becomes stressful. That's not necessarily because it has to be that way, or it's an emergency, or nobody knew. It's just the comms. I think that can be improved, and I think we're already working on it. And I think that's just, I think that's quite normal as well with the growth that we're experiencing, that like some of these more ad hoc-ish systems are no longer necessarily working because there's so many new people that don't necessarily know. And I think that's definitely something that we should aim to like improve.
Cool. So just on the QA side of things, that's about the only geo work I have been undertaking in the last little while. I had a really nice coffee chat with Jenny today, and just to see how she was progressing. And at this stage, it sounds like she's still onboarding. And I said to her, I'd love to be, work with her, when the time comes that she joins or starts working on geo-related issues. Because we had a number. There's actually two issues. There's one I just closed, I think it was yesterday or the day before. We had two tests. We had two tests, and now there's just one that are quarantined. So for a period of about 2.5 weeks, maybe even 3, we had one QA test basically not running. And so, yeah, I think I always get concerned when we have quarantine tests because our visibility of breaking issues is limited. So I'm looking forward to Jenny being more active in the geo space. She's keen to get started, but I don't know of the timing of when she'll be commencing geo work. But I'm looking forward to, I guess, passing on my drive for QA and quality over and sort of sharing with her.
No, excellent. Thank you very much. Yeah, she'll be, she's almost finished with the onboarding now, so she is looking to actively get started on the geo things, and that's a good shout to ask her to take a look at the quarantine things. So I'll pass that on as well. She should be on the call on this afternoon, so I'll reflect what you said in the update, since she won't be on the call this afternoon.
Cool. Yeah, we share a few hours overlap, so it'd be great to pair up. I mean, even just early stages, and because there is quite a bit in there as far as how it all works. So it'd be great to share that.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for that. Right, I'm conscious of the time. So Fabian, you've got the last item.
Yes. So that's just a personal update. Some of you already know. I'm going to be a dad. So my wife is 21 weeks pregnant. And so we had our last scan yesterday evening, sort of ultrasound, everything, and it all looks good, and it's super exciting, and yeah, it's a bit crazy, lots of change in the last months, but I just wanted to share that with you, and I think we are going to be one of the very sort of family or I don't know what the right word is. I think lots of us have kids or are going to have kids, and I think that's really cool. And I'm really excited about it.
It's very obvious how excited you are. Congratulations! It's super exciting.
Yeah, congratulations! It's awesome news.
Well, congratulations! I'm so happy for you.
Thank you, Valerie. It's
my maths is bad. What is the due date?
So the due date is the 30th of November. Essentially Thanksgiving, which is also exciting for my wife because she is American. But yeah, we'll see. So we are a little bit more than halfway through. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. So yeah, it's really cool. And I'm also really glad that I said this. I don't know if I said it before, but I feel very fortunate to be part of, a company and a team where, we can have a kid now in a place where we feel comfortable, right? And we like to be, and I can still do work that, I'm excited about. And I think that's, it's really nice. And I feel very fortunate to have the opportunity to work with all of you in that situation. So it's really cool.
Try and stockpile sleep right now. Start stockpiling.
Yeah. It's I don't know. I have a feeling, I may look not as fresh at some point.
you never know. It's the luck of the draw, really,
It's
with
luck of
kids, with sleep. So
Yeah. Well, if our kid turns out as my wife did, I'm out of luck. So, cool. Yeah, that's all I had. I thought I'd just share it.
Well, that's an awesome way to close up the call for today. Thank you for letting us all know. That's fantastic news. Also, thank you to everyone for joining the update today. I will upload the recording and hope that you all enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So,
Bye.
bye.